The concept of teleportation has captivated human imagination for generations. And it appears in countless works of fiction as a symbol of ultimate freedom and technological mastery. The ability to disappear from one point and reappear instantly at another erases the fundamental constraints of distance, time, and travel. It promises a future where commutes vanish, global supply chains operate with zero latency, and the physical constraints of geography no longer dictate the flow of goods or people. This vision, however, often overlooks the immense complexity of the systems that would be displaced. A truly functional teleportation network would not simply be a new mode of transport. It would be a foundational shock to the entire operating system of modern civilization, forcing a complete redesign of nearly every process we take for granted. Our analysis will not entertain the fantastical. Instead, we will approach this as a systems engineering problem. Imagine a technology developed and deployed not as magic, but as a meticulously engineered infrastructure. This system would function much like our global data networks, but for physical matter. It would require colossal energy inputs, vast data centers for processing and error correction, and rigorous safety protocols to ensure the integrity of every single transmission. We will set aside the unknowable physics behind such a device and focus on the practical, tangible consequences of its existence. What happens to our world when the cost and time of movement approach zero? The answers are found not in physics, but in economics, logistics, and human behavior. This exploration will be grounded in the real-world frameworks that govern our lives today. We will examine the cascading effects on global trade, urban planning, energy grids, and labor markets. How would supply chains, built on the predictable delays of ocean freight and trucking, adapt to instantaneous delivery? What would happen to the value of real estate when proximity to a city center becomes irrelevant? More profoundly, we will consider the societal and geopolitical shifts. When borders become permeable points in a digital network, how do nations maintain sovereignty, regulate trade, and manage migration? The introduction of such a powerful tool would create as many vulnerabilities as it would solve problems, creating new bottlenecks and systemic risks. Our journey begins by establishing a baseline, the world as it operates now, a complex web of logistical pathways, economic incentives, and physical infrastructure. From there, we will introduce a limited, operational teleportation network and trace the immediate disruptions it would cause. We will then scale up the analysis to understand the system-wide impacts, the environmental consequences, and the very structure of our daily routines. This is not a story of utopia or dystopia. It is a sober examination of how a single technological breakthrough could force a radical and often painful reorganization of the entire global system, raising critical questions about control, equity, and the true meaning of place in a world without distance. Our modern world is built upon a vast, intricate, and surprisingly fragile circulatory system. This network of ships, planes, trains, and trucks is the physical backbone of the global economy, moving raw materials, finished goods, and people across continents and oceans. Every product we consume, from a smartphone assembled in Asia to the coffee grown in South America, has undertaken a long and complex journey through this system. It is a marvel of coordination, optimized over centuries for efficiency and cost-effectiveness. The entire structure relies on a delicate balance of capacity, scheduling, and predictable delays. Ocean liners carry immense volumes at low cost but high latency, while air freight offers speed for high-value or perishable goods at a premium price, creating a tiered system based on urgency and economic value. This global logistics network operates much like a biological organism, with arteries, veins, and capillaries. The great maritime shipping lanes are the main arteries, connecting the world's great logistical hearts, hubs like Singapore, Shanghai, and Rotterdam. From these major nodes, smaller vessels, trains, and trucks act as veins, distributing goods inland to regional distribution centers. Finally, an intricate web of local delivery vans and couriers serves as the capillary network, bringing packages to our doorsteps. The health of this entire system depends on the smooth functioning of its key choke points, ports, canals like the Suez and Panama, and major rail yards, where even minor disruptions can cause systemic clots that ripple across the globe, leading to shortages and price spikes. Underpinning this physical movement is a parallel flow of information. Digital systems track every container, pallet, and package, managing customs clearance, inventory levels, and payment processing. This data layer is as critical as the physical infrastructure itself, allowing for the just-in-time manufacturing models that define modern industry. Companies no longer need to maintain vast, expensive warehouses of parts. Instead, they rely on the precise, predictable timing of deliveries to feed their assembly lines. This lean approach minimizes waste and cost, but introduces a profound vulnerability. The entire system is optimized for predictability, meaning any unexpected event, a storm, a labor strike, or a blocked canal, can bring production to a halt thousands of miles away, revealing the tightly coupled nature of our interconnected world. The human element remains indispensable within this automated and optimized framework. Millions of people work as sailors, pilots, truck drivers, warehouse operators, and logistics managers. Their expertise and labor are the essential lubricant that keeps the gears of global trade turning. They navigate complex regulations, handle unexpected breakdowns, and physically load and unload the constant stream of goods. This human infrastructure represents a massive global workforce whose skills are tailored specifically to the constraints and demands of physical transportation. The introduction of a technology that bypasses this entire process would not just be an upgrade. It would represent an existential threat to the livelihoods and economic structures that have been built around the simple, immutable fact that moving things takes time, effort, and a vast network of human hands. The moment a commercially viable point-to-point teleportation network becomes operational for cargo, the initial consequences would be swift and brutal for legacy transportation systems. The first and most immediate victim would be the air freight industry. Its entire business model is predicated on a single advantage: speed at a premium cost. Teleportation, offering instantaneous transit, would render this proposition obsolete overnight. Airlines that rely heavily on cargo revenue would face an immediate financial crisis. The specialized fleets of cargo planes, Boeing 747 freighters and smaller feeder aircraft, would become functionally worthless, their value plummeting to little more than scrap. The intricate logistics of air cargo, airport sorting hubs, specialized loading equipment, and time-sensitive ground crews would be abandoned in place. This initial shock would ripple outward to the world's major airports. These sprawling complexes are massive logistical hubs designed around the clockwork movement of aircraft. A significant portion of their revenue comes from landing fees, cargo handling services, and warehouse rentals for air freight operators. As cargo teleporters, likely located in more efficient industrial zones, siphon away this traffic, airports would see a catastrophic drop in income. The decline would be selective at first. High-value, low-weight goods like pharmaceuticals, consumer electronics, and sensitive documents would be the first to move to the new network, gutting the most profitable segment of the air cargo market. The ecosystem of businesses that support this trade, from customs brokers to specialized trucking firms, would face immediate insolvency. The impact would extend beyond just cargo. While passenger teleportation might face higher regulatory hurdles, the simple existence of a reliable matter transfer network would begin to erode business travel. Why send an engineer on a 12-hour flight for a critical repair when the necessary replacement part can be teleported directly to a local technician? Why fly a team of executives across the globe for a single meeting when key documents and prototypes can be exchanged instantly? This gradual substitution of matter transport for human transport would further strain the airline industry, which depends on high-margin business-class tickets to subsidize cheaper economy fares. The initial consequence is not a complete shutdown, but a severe and rapid bleeding of the most lucrative parts of the transportation economy. The psychological impact would be just as significant. For over a century, the airplane has been a symbol of modernity, speed, and global connection. The sight of contrails in the sky is a mundane reminder of a world stitched together by flight. As skies begin to empty, and the familiar roar of jets over cities becomes less frequent, the public would witness a tangible sign of a fundamental paradigm shift. The great unplugging of the aviation network would be a stark and unsettling demonstration of the new technological order. Airports, once vibrant monuments to human mobility, would begin their transformation into relics of a bygone era, their vast runways and terminals standing as silent testaments to a world that was suddenly and irrevocably left behind. With the physical act of crossing a border rendered obsolete for goods, governments would face an immediate and existential crisis of control. For centuries, national sovereignty has been enforced at physical checkpoints, ports, border crossings, and airports. It is here that customs officials inspect cargo, verify documentation, levy tariffs, and interdict illegal goods. This system, while imperfect, provides a fundamental mechanism for states to regulate their economies, protect their citizens, and enforce their laws. Teleportation dismantles this framework entirely. A shipment of goods could materialize deep within a country's borders, having never passed through a monitored physical port of entry, effectively bypassing the entire customs apparatus. This creates an immediate and critical vulnerability that no nation could ignore. The initial response would be a frantic regulatory scramble. Nations would rush to establish a new digital border, mandating that all teleportation platforms, both senders and receivers, be registered, monitored, and integrated directly into government customs and security networks. International agreements would be needed to standardize data protocols, ensuring that the manifest for any teleported shipment is transmitted and approved before the transfer is initiated. This would transform customs from a physical inspection process into a form of digital pre-clearance, akin to a firewall for matter. Every item would require a detailed digital twin, its composition and origin logged and vetted against import restrictions, tariffs, and security watch lists. This would inevitably lead to a high-stakes game of cat and mouse. Just as data networks gave rise to hackers and cybercrime, a matter teleportation network would create a new class of digital smuggler. Unregistered, black market teleportation devices would become a top national security threat, capable of moving weapons, narcotics, or untaxed goods with perfect impunity. Governments would be forced to invest heavily in new forms of detection. Perhaps sensors capable of identifying the unique energy signature of an unauthorized matter stream. A new digital jurisdiction would have to be defined, raising complex legal questions. If an illegal item is teleported from one country to another, where did the crime occur? At the point of origin, the destination, or the digital space in between? The immediate consequence for trade would be a temporary paralysis, followed by the imposition of a highly restrictive regulatory regime. The promise of frictionless commerce would be replaced by the reality of digital bureaucracy. Health and safety screenings, once performed on samples at the border, would now have to be certified at the source, requiring a new global industry of trusted third-party verifiers. The process for approving a teleportation would become a complex choke point, with digital queues and security holds replacing the physical lines of ships waiting to enter a port. The dream of instantaneous delivery would collide with the non-negotiable need for sovereign states to control what enters their territory and who enters their territory, creating a new and deeply complex form of border friction. Beyond the high-level shocks to aviation and government, the initial rollout of teleportation would trigger a devastating wave of economic dislocation for millions of workers. The first to be affected would be those whose livelihoods are directly tied to the physical movement of goods over long distances. Truck drivers, who form the backbone of continental logistics, would see demand for long-haul routes evaporate. While last-mile delivery might still be necessary, coast-to-coast and cross-border freight runs would be replaced by regional teleportation hubs. An entire profession, a way of life for many, would be rendered economically unviable in years, not decades, leaving a workforce facing mass unemployment. The ripple effect would spread through the entire support ecosystem. Towns along major trucking routes, reliant on truck stops, motels, diners, and repair shops, would face economic collapse. These were not just service stations, they were vital nodes, providing rest, sustenance, and community for a mobile workforce. As highways empty of long-haul freight, roadside communities would turn into ghost towns. The same fate would hit communities around major seaports. Longshoremen, crane operators, and warehouse workers would find their roles gone. This would create an immediate social and political crisis. Unlike past shifts that unfolded over generations, this transition would be brutally fast. There would be no time for gradual retraining or natural retirements. A huge segment of the workforce, primarily men without college degrees, would be displaced. This would strain social safety nets and fuel public anger. Protests, strikes, and political movements demanding halts or compensation would be common. The promise of efficiency would be drowned out by immediate pain. This first wave would reveal a stark divide: the mobility rich and the mobility poor. Beneficiaries: hyper-efficient corporations and knowledge workers collaborating at light speed. Victims: those whose value came from overcoming physical distance. Software engineers managing teleport networks would be elevated, while skilled truck mechanics would be devalued. This would lay the groundwork for a more fractured, unequal society defined by one's relationship to instantaneous movement. The widespread adoption of teleportation would trigger a profound reevaluation of land use and resource extraction, fundamentally altering humanity's environmental footprint. With transportation no longer a major source of carbon emissions, the global energy map would shift dramatically. The immense demand for fossil fuels from the aviation, shipping, and trucking industries would plummet, causing a structural collapse in the oil and gas markets. This would not, however, spell an end to energy consumption. Instead, the burden would transfer directly to the electrical grid. Teleportation, as an engineered process of deconstruction and reconstruction, would require colossal amounts of electricity, creating a voracious new demand that would dwarf current global usage. This would accelerate the push for massive-scale power generation, favoring high-density sources like nuclear fusion and vast orbital solar arrays. This energy demand would reshape the planet's geography. New power generation facilities would become the central nodes of civilization, with energy-rich regions gaining immense geopolitical power. Simultaneously, the need for land dedicated to transportation infrastructure would vanish. Vast asphalt expanses of highways, massive airport footprints, and sprawling rail yards could be decommissioned and reclaimed. This presents an unprecedented opportunity for ecological restoration, potentially returning millions of square kilometers of land to nature. Forests could be regrown where interstate highways once stood, and wetlands could be restored on the sites of former port facilities. The scar tissue of the industrial age could begin to heal, creating a greener, more contiguous natural world. The logic of resource extraction would also be inverted. Currently, the viability of a mine or oil field depends heavily on its proximity to transport networks. Ores must be moved by rail or ship, adding significant cost. With teleportation, the most remote deposits would become instantly accessible. Raw materials could be teleported directly from a mine deep in the Andes, or from Siberia to a factory anywhere on Earth. This would open up previously uneconomic reserves, but it would also create the risk of unchecked, distributed extraction. Environmental monitoring would become far more difficult, as mining operations could spring up in pristine, isolated ecosystems without the telltale sign of supporting infrastructure like roads or railways. Ultimately, the environmental impact would be a double-edged sword. On the one hand, the end of combustion engine transport promises a dramatic reduction in atmospheric pollutants and a chance to reclaim developed land for nature. On the other, the insatiable energy requirements and the ability to exploit resources anywhere on the planet could create new and more insidious forms of environmental degradation. The key challenge would be managing this new paradigm, ensuring that the efficiency gains of teleportation are not simply reinvested into a more rapid and widespread depletion of the planet's natural resources. The system would remove old constraints, but introduce new, more powerful temptations for unsustainable growth. We would, need to be very careful. The economic consequences of a mature teleportation network would extend far beyond the collapse of legacy transport industries. It would forge a new economic model, the zero-latency economy. Supply chains, once built around the delays of physical movement, would be completely re-architected. Just-in-time manufacturing would be replaced by just-in-the-moment production. A factory could teleport components from suppliers around the globe, arriving the instant they are needed, eliminating warehousing and inventory management. This would slash operational costs, reduce waste, and enable unprecedented production agility and customization. A customer could order a personalized product, have raw materials sourced, assembled, and delivered within hours, not weeks. This system would reshape labor markets and the nature of work. Labor's value would detach from geographic location. A highly skilled technician in one country could remotely operate and maintain machinery elsewhere by teleporting tools and replacement parts. That creates a global freelance economy for physical tasks and intensifies competition. Companies would hire from a worldwide talent pool, driving down wages for non-rare skills. The old split, high-skill knowledge work versus low-skill manual labor, would shift to location-independent work versus location-dependent work. Corporations and markets would transform. Physical retail storefronts, already challenged by e-commerce, would become largely obsolete. Why go to a store when any product can materialize at home instantly? Massive digital platforms would control teleportation networks, acting as gatekeepers for all physical commerce. They would wield huge market power, set transaction terms, and capture data on every item moved. The infrastructure costs would create natural barriers to entry, risking monopolistic control. The economy might be more efficient, but also more centralized and less resilient. The concept of value would change. The premium on proximity and speed would vanish. Central business district real estate would lose advantage as workers could live anywhere without a commute. Perishables value would be redefined. A Pacific-caught fish could be served fresh in Europe moments later. Winners and losers would be massive. Geographic asset values would collapse, while fortunes would form around controlling the flow of matter. The transition would bring extreme volatility, erasing old wealth and creating new monopolies based on instantaneous logistics. Well, yeah, it would be a wild shift. The most profound system-wide impact would be on our experience of time, space, and society. With distance friction removed, the pace of life would accelerate. The psychological buffer of travel time, transition, and reflection during a commute or long flight would vanish. Daily life could become a relentless series of instantaneous jumps. Home, virtual office, social gathering, to a vacation spot on another continent. This could create temporal disorientation and fragment personal experience as place and movement give way to disembodied, on-demand existence. It would reshape social structures and relationships. Migration patterns would become fluid and constant. People could change jobs and countries on a whim. Transient pop-up communities could replace long-term neighborhood cohesion. The idea of hometown or national identity might weaken. That could foster cosmopolitan culture or cause social atomization, people feeling disconnected from stable communities. Privacy becomes paramount. Every movement would be a logged, traceable data point. The infrastructure would face immense strain. The electrical grid would need rebuilding. Data centers would become critical infrastructure. A failure would be catastrophic. A grid outage would halt movement of goods and people. A data breach could endanger teleported objects or people. Society would rely on a hyper-complex, centralized backbone, vulnerable to collapse or attack. Ultimately, this forces us to reevaluate what it means to be human without physical constraints. Our brains and customs evolved with distance and effort. Removing that constant would change everything. It could unlock collaboration, exploration, efficiency, but also create something frantic, fragile, and alienated. The challenge isn't mastering teleportation, it's mastering ourselves, preserving slowness, stability, and a tangible sense of place. In the final analysis, the introduction of a teleportation network would represent the most profound restructuring of civilization since the dawn of agriculture. It offers a seductive promise: The erasure of distance, the end of wasted time. A hyper-efficient global system where goods, and perhaps people, move at the speed of light. The practical gains are undeniable, pointing towards a future with cleaner skies, restored ecosystems, and unprecedented access to global resources. The end of combustion-based transport would fundamentally alter our relationship with the planet's climate, while the ability to deliver life-saving medicine or critical parts instantly could solve problems that are currently insurmountable. It paints a picture of a world where the physical constraints that have defined human history are simply switched off, unlocking a new phase of progress. However, this thought experiment reveals that such a powerful tool would break as much as it fixes, creating a world of new and more complex fragilities. The economic dislocation would be swift and brutal, rendering entire industries and professions obsolete overnight and creating a stark new divide between the mobility-rich and the mobility-poor. The centralization of all movement into a single, complex technological system would make society catastrophically vulnerable to systemic failure, a technical glitch, a power grid collapse, or a malicious cyber attack. The very fabric of society, our sense of place, community, and national identity, would be strained as the world becomes a placeless, transient network of interconnected nodes, all logged and monitored. The true challenge of teleportation, therefore, is not one of physics, but of governance, equity, and foresight. We would gain the power to reshape space and time, but we would risk losing the buffers and frictions that give our systems resilience and our lives a human pace. The transition would demand not just brilliant engineering, but a level of international cooperation and social planning that humanity has never before achieved. Careful, deliberate policy would be needed to manage the displacement of workers, regulate the monopolistic power of network operators, and preserve individual privacy in a world of perfect tracking. The technology itself is neutral. Its outcome would depend entirely on the wisdom and restraint of its creators. Ultimately, the prospect of teleportation forces us to confront a fundamental question: is a faster, more efficient world necessarily a better one? While it could solve the problem of movement, it would introduce the far more difficult problems of meaning, stability, and control. The journey from a world defined by physical geography to one defined by digital access is fraught with peril. The greatest risk is that in our rush to eliminate the friction of distance, we may inadvertently erase the very structures that provide our world with texture, resilience, and a sense of shared humanity. The final insight is a cautionary one. True progress lies not just in accelerating our capabilities, but in carefully considering the world we are building in the process. What scenario should we explore next? Share your ideas below. You've been watching IfVerse, where imagination meets possibility. See you in our next reality.